Are you using a piano method that starts with both thumbs on middle C and stays there for many, many, many pieces? There may be other things about that method that are absolutely great, but I personally will not be using it in my studio. Hey beautiful teachers, my name's Nicola. I'm a piano teacher in Dublin in Ireland, and on this channel I give you tips and ideas to use in your music teaching to help your lessons become more engaging and to help you have more fun. In this video, I'll explain why I don't love middle C position methods and why I think you should consider ditching or switching them out. What you won't see in this video is naming and shaming of any one particular method because number one, I don't believe in doing that. There are still some good things about those books and I think that would just be rude. And number two, I don't have any to show you, so it wouldn't make any sense since they're just not in my studio. Stay tuned to the very end when I'll share with you some of my favorite methods that are not middle C position methods and that I personally use and love in my studio. And if you are currently a die-hard fan of a particular middle C position book, hear me out anyway, stick around, even if you won't be switching anytime soon. Because I think it's wise to know the strengths and weaknesses of any book that we're using. Because no book, just like people, no book is perfect. So it's important to know where those weaknesses lie so that you can adjust for them as a teacher. All right, let's get into it. My first reason for not using middle C position method books is their focus on note names. Now, this is actually the reason why they do it, and it's my problem with it. So let me explain. There are other books that also focus on note names. This is not exclusive to methods that use a middle C position approach. However, it is the reason that they use this approach to the best of my understanding and guesstimating, because they believe that you're teaching one note at a time. So they start in the center. This may have been the way you learned. It's the way I learned from John Thompson. And they start in the center and learn C, because that's the easiest to remember on the staff, right? And then you learn B and D, and then you learn E and A, and you sort of go out like that. Or you learn the whole shape, but you just stick with those. And it's this idea of building up the notes step by step. And at first glance, that makes a ton of sense, doesn't it? It's not overwhelming students with the whole staff all at once. However, I believe it's grounded in a thorough misunderstanding of how we read music. And I know that's a big claim, but I think it's the truth. We now know that we read music by interval, by pattern. That's how effective readers read. So trying to make note names easier is totally missing the point of what would actually make reading easier. Having students focus on just those first few notes at first seems logical, seems to make their learning process more step-by-step, more gradual, more gentle. But it actually doesn't, because it focuses on the note names. They learn to try and remember every note name all along the way and figure out every note as they're playing, and that is a really inefficient way to read. Reason number two is the uncomfortable twisted forearm position. So this is actually one of the reasons that I've been told by a teacher that they liked middle C methods. I can't even remember which one we were discussing, so I definitely can't name and shame it because I don't even remember, and it doesn't matter. But I was chatting with a teacher at a conference, at a network kind of workshop-y event, about their favorite books, and they mentioned one that they loved, and I knew it was middle C position, and I said, oh, I don't love that because of the middle C position. And she said, oh, but if they play that way from the start and it is so awkward, then they don't complain about things feeling awkward later. And I was like, what? You want your students to learn that playing piano should feel awkward and they just need to get over it? No. Like, I get the sentiment behind it. She was trying to say students shouldn't whinge about every little thing, I guess, which, whatever. But this is not a little thing. This is twisting your forearms and learning from the very beginning to play in this position where the thumbs share the C. That's already kind of uncomfortable for students. And then you are rotating inwards. So if you just sit there and you put your hands on your legs, your forearms will be roughly parallel. Their elbows might be slightly turned out, depending on your width probably. And then if you raise your hands up to the keyboard in that shape, you're not going to be anywhere close together in terms of your thumbs. But if you bring your thumbs then right in beside each other, your forearm is twisted. And sure, sometimes we need to be in that position for piano, but that is not a good foundation for developing effective technique from, because right from the get-go, you're saying, okay, twist your arm so you can't use your muscles in the way they should be used to play fluidly and naturally and without tension. That just seems bananas to me. Reason number 3 is one of the most common complaints that is leveled at position-based methods in general, and it is true. Students get stuck in a particular spot. So they learn that 1 is always C in both hands. They learn that 2 in their left hand is B and 2 in their right hand is D. They get this idea that their fingers are rooted. And this goes beyond inefficient reading. And it goes beyond even the technique I mentioned before. The issue with this is that it leads to students who literally get stuck to the keys. I mean, they glue their fingers down if they could. And this can be worse for some students than for others. It's more of a red flag, a thing to watch out for particular students. But for all of them, it's not particularly helpful. Think of how you play. Sure, sometimes your fingers you have your hands with one finger on every key, but a lot of the time you don't. A lot of the time you're stretched out beyond that slightly, or you're reaching for a key, or you're going over and under your thumb, or, you have your hands like this for something. You can be in any number of positions. So getting this idea that you find your spot and you stick there is a weakness of all position-based methods. And in my experience, ones that use a middle C position approach take an even longer time in that position than ones that use some other position bases as their first base and then move a little bit quicker, usually, in most methods. So that is another reason why I hate these middle C position methods. Reason number 4 is huge. And I don't think it can be overstated. The music in a middle C position is boring. It's boring. It's terrible. It sounds terrible. I mean, you can't do much with those notes. There's not very many of them, but even the notes that they are don't all go together that well, do they? So why? Why would we start there? Why would we start with the most boring possible music? I just don't get that part. Even if you imagine a C position method, which is where your left hand has 5 on bass C and your right hand has 1 on middle C, still not my favorite, but I will use a method sometimes for particular purposes that's in that place to start, because at least it makes sense. At least you can play C chords plus a melody and make it sound good together. What can you do with the middle C? I mean, you can just do I am C, middle C. That's what they end up with. And it's just not good enough. A student comes to your studio because they're excited about learning their piano, or their parent is. They are full of possibilities. They come to you waiting to see what playing piano is like, what music they can make themselves. And then you teach them da 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 or whatever. And it's not inspiring, it's not interesting enough. So boring music is a huge claim to level out a whole group of books, but there's just not that much you can write in that shape, and you get stuck within those limited possibilities while trying to drill all these note names that aren't effective for learning anyway. So those are my 4 reasons for not using these middle C position methods, but if you have your own, or you have some defense in their honor, you can leave that in the comments, and I'd love to hear what your favorite method books are. As I said, I'm going to share mine. So I absolutely love Piano Safari. This is not a secret if you followed my channel for a while. And there are occasional songs in Piano Safari that use a middle C position, but they are occasional, they're used with purpose, they're normally folk songs, and it's just as common for students to have their thumb on C and their left hand thumb on B, or their left hand thumb on C and their right hand thumb on D. So it's never locked in as a position, and it's only used when the song calls for it, when they need that palette of notes. So in that sense, I think it's perfectly justified, and it's fine once in a while. There's nothing wrong with playing in any particular position. There's something wrong with getting stuck there. So Piano Safari is my absolute favorite. You can check out our video on the channel about why I love that method. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. And even if you disagree with me, I hope it enlightened you to some of the holes in your favorite method so that you can fill them with other things you do as a teacher. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.